everyone, this is Vivo Mystery Cases. Today let's talk about the terrible world after death. Do you ever think that if there's another world and life after death, that it would be a wonderful thing, right? This statement varies from place to place. For example, in Western religions, they think that after death, the soul must be judged, either to go to heaven or hell, no reincarnation. In Buddhism, they believe that there are 6 reincarnations after death. It may still be like what we said in our last video, the virtual world, that if this world is virtual, then that may mean that your virtual game is over. You exit this game and then return to the original world. Others say that there's a change of dimension after death. It's like the world we live in is a 3-dimensional world. There may be changes in the dimensions of life after death. It may be towards a higher dimension, or it may be reduced to a lower dimension. Those with memories of previous lives may still be in a 3-dimensional world, because those who are in low-dimensional life cannot understand how is it like to live on a higher dimensional life. It's like an ant crawling on one page of a book. It won't know how many pages that book has. Those may have past life memories of people is to maintain at this dimension of man. The most scientific explanation of death is that a soul disappears after death. There are short-term death cases. It is called near-death experience. If such person experience near-death scenarios, she must remember what they saw. There is also called after near-death experience. A person who experienced it must have credibility. For example, a person experiencing the near-death experience must be someone who never believed in the post-mortem world before he was near death, and he must have a certain reputation because there is a certain popularity and it must be very influential. In 2012, an author wrote a book called Heaven. The book is really popular in the US with more than 20 million copies sold. In this book, the author describes the scene he saw through his near-death experience. The author of the book was Eben Alexander. He was a doctor and a neurologist. His father is also a very famous neurosurgeon, and their family is famous for medical lawyers and various social elites. He graduated from the famous American university Duke University in 1980s. At a very young age, Eben was a brain surgeon and neurosurgeon in the United States. He has said many times that he did not believe the post-death scenarios, and as a neurosurgeon doctor, he has repeatedly pulled up his patients off the deathline, and many have described this dying experience with him. One of his patients told him, "What is it like to almost encounter death?" He said that he was inside a blocked tunnel and could see nothing, but he saw a very bright light in the distance, which is getting closer to him as it appears nearer. The patient recalled that he saw his father, who was dead a long time ago. As time goes, Eben encountered many patients who told a similar plot. But as a brain science doctor, Eben didn't believe much about this kind of thing. What he believed is that it was all an illusion of memory of the brain. The American Medical Association conducted a survey and compiled this report of this near-death experience that occurred across the country, and there are few particularly well-known cases. The first case was in 1985. There's this woman who narrated how she encountered near-death experience. She was on her hospital bed unconscious. Her body slowly float. After getting up in the bed, she floated out of the hospital through the ceiling and stood on the top floor of the entire hospital building. She then looked at everything very clearly, not like a dream. Then a hole appeared underground. She fell and immediately returned back to the operating room, back to her own body. After that, the woman woke up. She then said to the nurses that there are red shoes on the rooftop of the hospital. The nurses just nodded and eventually let her rest, insisting she might just be dreaming, and later, the nurse went to the top of the building. Inadvertently, she saw a pair of red shoes on the floor the woman was referring to. She was shocked and afraid at the same time, because the rooftop is generally a restricted area. There is also a very famous case in 1973, when a woman rushed into the hospital because of a traffic accident. The woman said she saw herself lying in bed while the medical personnel are trying to rescue her. But she didn't rise up or descend. She just stood in that room and watched everyone save her life. She remembered the location of all the equipment in the hospital and all the staff who rescued her right after she woke up. The doctor was shocked because the woman was absolutely right, and what's more intriguing is that this woman was born blind. So in theory, it is absolutely impossible for her to be produced through the brain's memory or hallucinations. Even if there are such exaggerated cases, these patients just mentioned are not such credible characters themselves, so everything they say might also be an illusion. Ibn saw this report. He didn't think there was anything particularly strange until 2008, when his own experience in this matter thoroughly changed his view and perception. November 10, 2008, he was normally sleeping at his home. Around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, he suddenly felt a back and head pain. He was struggling to sit up. He was in a sleeping paralysis, and his wife slept beside him. At 5 or 6 in the morning, his wife woke up and suddenly found out that he's not responding anymore. She immediately rushed him to the hospital. Ibn's colleague and the doctor examined him and found bacterial meningitis. What kind of disease is this? The human spinal cord and brain have a layer of membrane called the medullary membrane. The membrane is infected with bacteria and inflamed. It is a very serious and dangerous disease. According to the type of the infection-associated membrane bacteria, the lethality of the disease is different. At that time, the infected bacteria was E. coli, which was the most serious one, and lethality reached more than 90%. Even if it is 10%, lucky enough to survive the disease can cause serious complications. Probability is 100%. On the other side, Ibn survived this disease. Luckily, he didn't leave any sequel. This is also the first case of severe meningitis without any sequel in world history. He felt a little scared at first. According to him, a very dazzling light rose above his head. The light quickly fell down. All the dark surroundings around him all turned very bright. He entered a bright tunnel and was transmitted to a certain place. He can vaguely hear that people here are like in the church. There was a very pleasant kind of music, and he said that he has never been this kind of world before. It's not an ordinary world like ours. A young woman suddenly appeared next to him. He didn't know this woman, and this woman told him that there's still many people who love him in that world. After that, the woman disappeared. Suddenly, he saw a cloud coming out in front. After entering it, he entered another world. Each world was different, and finally, he entered the black tunnel. He returned to the real world. He saw himself lying in bed in a coma, and his family was praying around him. He then decided to return to his body and woke up. During his coma, his brain was not working, and he has an infection called meningitis, the inflammation of the nerves of the brain. In this state, people will not remember anything. There will be no dreams, no hallucinations, and no memories. Let's talk more about his life before this thing happened to him. In fact, he was abandoned by his parents. His father was only 18 years old, and his mother was only 16 years old when his parents gave birth to him. He was adopted by a doctor. Since then, Ibn has to work hard to learn and become an excellent doctor. He always knew he was adopted, but he had never met his biological parents. His biological parents later married and gave birth, which is Ibn's brother and sister. Until 53 years old, he finally met for the first time his biological parents. He asked where is his brother and sister, but they said that his sister passed 11 years ago. She died in an accident. His parents have heard Ibn's experience back from the dead. He asked for her sister's photo, and to his surprise, the woman he saw in his near-death experience is his sister. Coupled with the matter of her sister, he completely believed that what he saw was definitely not an illusion, because his sister's voice did not exist in his memory at all. So he later wanted to say that he felt particularly happy upon meeting his sister in a different world. When he understood everything, he said that that was not the end of life. He felt particularly happy to live now, with fear or without fear. Now there is another world to live after death. Then the world must be cherished. As a doctor, it seems like he has no feelings particularly about life and death, but now his family's happiness is important, so he eventually gave up being being a doctor and became a writer since then to share people his experiences. He also had hopes that one day, science can explain these matter and will not directly deny that this situation exists. In real life, cherish the people you love. Cherish any rare opportunity you'll have in this world so you won't regret it. You'll never know what comes next. Do you have any ideas to share? Leave us a comment down below and let's discuss. Don't forget to subscribe.